When the devil calls,
when the devil comes to town, he will appear dressed in black. He shall arise upon white horses, fallen angels on their back. Don't bother with forgiveness, your salvation can't be found. He will strike upon the righteous and shall burn the heavens down.
when the devil calls,
Heavens down.
when the devil calls, I'm gonna ride that train. When the devil calls, I'm gonna ride that train. Gonna lay my bullets down, gonna send him back to his grave. When the devil calls, you better hide, 'cause hell's coming down these bloody rails. Devil, when the devil, when the devil calls, when the devil,
So I shall stand before the altar and prepare my level best to strike down this evil demon and surpass this holy test. So take heed upon my warning before the devil gets his due. I shall afflict a bloody justice of revenge before I'm through.
when the devil calls, I'm gonna ride that train. When the devil calls, I'm gonna ride that train. Gonna lay my bullets down, gonna send him back to his grave. When the devil calls, you better hide, 'cause hell's coming down these bloody rails. Hell's coming down these bloody devil, when the devil, when the devil, when the devil, when the devil. Hell's coming down. Hell's coming down. Hell's coming down. Hell's coming down these bloody rails. When the devil calls, I'm gonna ride that train. When the devil calls, I'm gonna ride that train. Gonna lay my bullets down, gonna send him back to his grave. When the devil calls, you better hide, 'cause hell's coming down. Devil, when the devil, when the devil, devil, when the 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 devil, hell's coming down these bloody rails.
Welcome to the Dire Wolf Show, where we believe that America is exceptional and that our constitutional rights should never be infringed. I am Dire Wolf. On our show, we bring you the truth and debunk fake news. If you love laughing at the insanity of the regressive left, sit back and relax. Boy, do I have a show for you.
Let's go. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, we got a bonus. We got a bonus video today. Thanks to autoplay. Welcome back.
Welcome back, Wolfpack. Dire Wolf here for our weekly news recap from behind enemy lines on YouTube, where speech is not free and the truth is demonetized. Thank you very
I feel
much,
like at
Fox,
some
my
point,
co-host.
I feel like at some point we're gonna be like, we actually are gonna be behind enemy lines. Like, in the like Civil War battle lines.
Hey, very possible. And we also very likely will not be on YouTube for much longer. The purge is happening. They just haven't got to us yet. I guess we're not that important. That's all right.
They're certainly working on it. Oh. Well.
But you know who is important, Fox? That's our sponsors. That's you guys who've been donating to us financially. Kayla, Main, Nathan, Cameron, Tetris Freak, Slowpoke, Thundra Arkin, who's female, and the White Lion, as well as Timberwolf. Thank you for all your guys' donations. Also, thank you for everyone who likes, shares, subscribes. You make this show possible. It's your fault. We blame you.
Well, I mean, maybe for you. Like, I'm only here because you have me hostage, but... Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean...
I guess I have them to thank for
tied
enabling
up in a basement. You have no other option.
Okay,
I guess.
perfect. So,
at least you have a good attitude about it. So we have a surprisingly reasonable number of pages of notes for today's show.
No. We have a surprisingly reasonable amount of outline for today because we are continuing the much improv parts of the show. So it's entirely possible it will take too long, but we didn't do too bad last time, so we'll see. We'll see how tonight goes.
Yeah, we also were had very few topics last time. More of a couple of large topics. Anyways, get on to our first story. So we won't talk too much about talking about stories. Let's just actually talk about the stories.
Yes. So let's get set up here. So our first story is there's a lot of stories since we last saw you guys. We got impeachments too. Because of the Boogaloo. So we had a second impeachment. First impeachment was so great we went back for seconds. And it looks like we didn't grab a. Is this slide supposed to be for this story, Dyer?
It is later on.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. So basically, as you guys know, the week before last we had the Capitol siege. After on the 6th on Wednesday, that was the day that they did the electoral vote count. We talked a lot about that last Saturday. So I'm sure you all know about that. But obviously, from the left's point of view, that was all Trump's fault. Trump had ordered and commanded his legions of followers to storm Congress and possibly, I'm going to not be hyperbolic about what I was going to say. Well, I'll save that one for later because we are still on YouTube. So I actually do gotta, even if I'm being facetious, I got to be careful. But yeah, so the left was trying to say that was all Trump's fault, even though this week we found out that the timeline doesn't quite sync up because they had already breached Congress and were inside the Capitol building storming around while Trump was still talking, even though the narrative was that Trump had
started before he started speaking.
Really? So Trump had
Yes.
the narrative last week was that Trump had ordered the Capitol siege at the end of his speech on Wednesday, 2 Wednesdays ago. And the reality, again, the reality is that the timelines just don't sync up. When you compare all the timestamps in the videos, a lot of people were gathered at the Capitol before Trump had started speaking, and then they had breached the doors before he had finished speaking. So there's not really not a lot of compelling evidence that he was ordering it when he hadn't even had a chance to order it yet. And then if you watch his speech, he hadn't actually ordered anything.
His actual words show you he's calling for a peaceful protest and support for the politicians who are doing the vote.
Yeah. So obviously the Democrats say it was all Orange Man bad, and they decided that they were going to impeach him for it.
Yeah, because why be bogged down by the truth, right?
Right, exactly. Well, they weren't the first time, so, why not the second time? So they decided they were going to impeach him. They were very excited because the impeachment council this time from the Democrats was very diverse. They had a bunch of women and gays and blacks and a guy who had a lot of Chinese in him. And no other white people on there other than the guy who had a lot of Chinese in him. So one of the things was one of the things was interesting. So the white guy who had a lot of Chinese in him is obviously Eric Swalwell. Or no, is it Eric Swalwell? Yeah. Eric Swalwell. So Swalwell, notably, who had argued that we should be nuking Oregon because they have gun owners. Which I was thinking about that this week. Eric Swalwell advocated for nuking a U.S. state because of the political composition there. I got kicked off of Twitter for joking about nuking Iran. Just put that
I
in
can't
perspective.
really say much because I have routinely joked about nuking California, but whatever.
All places that need to be nuked. So it was very interesting that we had another impeachment this week, and one of the people that the Democrat Party thought was appropriate to put on as the impeachment managers was Eric Swalwell, who we know for a fact
Was a huge security breach.
yes, slept with a Chinese spy, very obviously compromised by China, and you basically had a Chinese asset on the impeachment council trying to remove the president of the United States. That's pretty next level. And I mean,
and he's not just a Democrat politician. He's not just a member of the of Congress. He is on the Security Council.
yes.
He's privy to all of the most secret things that Congress is told about what's going on in the government.
Yeah. We went all over that last time, but the big time, the thing this time is just the specific attempt to try to remove the sitting U.S. president by an asset of Beijing. Somebody who had sex with a Chinese spy is one of the people Nancy thought was appropriate to try to remove the United States president. I mean, I guess who would know better than a Chinese asset on how to remove the president? So I guess maybe that was Nancy's angle.
Possibly. I mean, we do have a president-elect who's also an asset of China, or at least has been doing business with them and sacrificing our foreign policy to benefit them. So I mean, it kind of makes sense in that way.
So one of the other issues that was highlighted this week was during the impeachment. I think they just did a vote. They didn't really have a hearing. It was one and done. They basically just took a vote on it, and it wasn't. They had a few speeches, but not a whole lot of stuff. I didn't watch it. Last time I watched, all quadrillion hours of it as impeachment played out over the course of 6 months. I did not do that for this one because, I mean, what were they going to say? It was just going to be the same lies I'd heard all week. So I didn't watch it, but I did hear some clips out of it, and some of the clips I heard highlighted a problem that we highlighted last week that we were a little bit early on, and that was how a lot of conservatives were reacting to the Capitol siege. So one in particular was I had highlighted last Saturday that after the Capitol siege, Ben Shapiro said that it was the worst day in America since 9/11. And we had talked about Ben and a few other conservatives. Again, we expect it from the left, but from conservatives, the hyperbole of the language, just the intensity with which they were talking about it was a little overblown. Was it good? No, it was pretty bad. We've gone through all that already last week, but the lying about how bad it was doesn't actually make it worse. It just makes you an idiot. So we had Ben Shapiro comparing the Capitol siege to 9/11. And then on Monday during the impeachment speeches, Swalwell, he said that Trump was similar to Osama bin Laden in that he had ordered an attack on America, even though he wasn't the one who had directly carried it out. And Ben Shapiro got very upset at this. He said that it was very hyperbolic and it was escalating the language, and it wasn't good for Swalwell to compare Trump to Osama bin Laden in the way that Trump had, did or didn't order the Capitol siege. But Osama bin Laden ordered 9/11, and Ben had already compared it to 9/11. So Swalwell, again, he did the reference from a different direction, but Swalwell was still likening it to 9/11. And Ben Shapiro, it's all fine and dandy when Ben Shapiro gets to say that, it's basically 9/11. And then a Democrat says, it's basically 9/11. And if it was 9/11, then, Trump would be Osama bin Laden in this situation. Swalwell was just completing the analogy, really. And then all of a sudden, Ben gets outraged about it. Ben had the 5-minute segment about how outraged that Swalwell would liken him to Osama bin Laden. Now, I'm not happy with what Swalwell did, but the problem that I'm trying to highlight here is that when conservatives when you overblow something, when you're hyperbolic in your language about something, you're overdoing it. Now you've backed yourself into a corner, because now Ben has made himself inconsistent, and it's a little bit silly that Ben would call it 9/11, and then Swal would say, yeah, it is 9/11, and Trump's basically Osama bin Laden, and all of a sudden Ben Shapiro's like, that's too far. So that's where we get into trouble on the right a lot. Is as we said, one of the big differences between the right and the left is the right is certainly willing to call our own side out, but there are some on the right who get off on calling out the right. It is kind of a fetish for them to be like, well, not only am I willing to call out the right, not only am I willing to call out my side, I take pleasure in it. And that was something that Ben was doing last week. Not that he does that all the time, but this is the reason why we got to watch out for that, because now you've backed yourself into a corner.
So Fox and I, we both value or understand the value of being consistent. So when we will criticize either party when they do something wrong. So when there's rioting and destruction of property and political violence on either end of the spectrum, we will criticize it because we're against that in principle. It's not like we don't, if someone riots and is on our tribe, we're going to defend them. That's not what's going to happen. We're not going to defend people who attack people and damage property. However, it is ridiculous to try to do what some on the right did and blame Trump for this. There is zero evidence that Trump, who has consistently called out and condemned political violence and destruction of property and rioting, it is ridiculous to blame these actions of a relatively small number of people who were aided and abetted to be able to get into the property to do those things and were egged on. It is ridiculous to blame Trump for that, like Dan Crenshaw did. Now, I've liked a lot of what Solid Snake has done, Dan Crenshaw, but he got it wrong when he tweeted out that he said this: we can't ignore that the president's behavior leading up to the violence at the Capitol Hill last week. He bears enormous responsibility for it. No, he bears zero responsibility for what those people did. He did not tell them to do it. He did not encourage that behavior. He's condemned that behavior. And anytime someone does that in his name, it's not his fault that they chose to do that and then said they did it for him. Now, it is very, very different from the Democrats who have called for, have funded, have aided rioters for the last 8 months. When those rioters go out and do those things with their consent and their support, yes, I blame the Democrats. But I do not blame a rioter who claims to be doing their actions in the name of Trump when Trump has consistently condemned those behaviors and never once encouraged it. The breach of the Capitol happened before he started speaking, and in his speech, he encouraged a peaceful protest to encourage the politicians to do the right thing. That is not a call to violence. And the entire impeachment is predicated on those words that are not a call to violence as being a call to violence. It's no more ridiculous than the last 4 years of investigations based on nothing and criticizing Trump and impeaching Trump for doing things that they themselves do. It is all dishonest political theater.
Yeah. So one thing that might be kind of good for Trump in the long scope of history is that he did get impeached twice. So this will be like the previous impeachment, though it was quicker, where Trump was impeached in the House, and then the last time the Senate did not find him, they didn't convict him. So he was impeached but not convicted. This time he was impeached, but McConnell is not going to be hearing the case. And so he will again not be convicted, but he was impeached twice. And so why this is interesting and kind of good for Trump in the long run, if you're going to look at this in kind of the long run of history, the deep time perspective, is if he was just impeached once, they might be able to just say, okay, it's because they didn't like him or he did these bad things, he just didn't get caught, all this stuff. But him getting impeached twice and getting impeached so close to the finish line, Trump's got literally a countable number of hours left in his presidency at this point. He's now the only president that was impeached twice, which again, if you're just impeached once, well, now you're part of you're kind of a part of an exclusive club there. But Trump's the only one. He's the Trump. He's the best at impeachment. He had the
best
most.
of getting impeached.
Yes. Yeah.
The biggest.
So they don't call me the impeachment master, but people call me that. I don't call myself that, but I'm the most impeached. But that looks like what that looks like is it looks like Congress is being petty. It looks very political. It looks like it was an attack on him politically.
It looks like what it is.
Yeah, exactly. So it does highlight it. It highlights the kind of childishness and the fervor with which the Democrats went after it, where it wasn't based off of crimes. It was purely political. And so it could be, again, trying to make some, lemon out of lemonade there, or lemonade out of lemons there is, it could look better in the long run. Again, we're talking several years out now when they write the history books. But again, if he's just impeached once, it's just part of the group. But now that he's impeached twice, it makes it look bad for the Democrats because it shows that they were willing to do something political. These were both very politically motivated impeachments, and then they weren't convicted. So what that shows is that it's purely political without evidence. So they were able to impeach him, but they didn't have any evidence to convict it, which means it didn't really have any teeth, which makes it look petty and bad. And someday, if we ever dig ourselves out of this cultural, political hellhole that we're all drowning in, and we get some sanity back into the culture and into the conversation a couple decades from now, cooler heads will look back on this and say, wow, the Democrats were just crazy, insane, just vicious animals, just scrapping at anything they could get their claws into. And it was purely political, and that's disgusting. So someday they'll see that. Or we'll, just 1984, Brave New World, and nobody will remember it.
So the negative aspect of this is that they have basically devalued what impeachment is. It now the standard for impeachment has been set to so low as we just don't like you, essentially, that it's become meaningless. In fact, we have Republicans threatening to impeach Biden on day one of his presidency.
Do it anytime.
I mean, and why not? They set the goal line so low. Biden obviously meets the criteria of we don't like you.
Yeah, so anytime they're working on impeachment, they're not working on other bills. So I say go ahead and waste your time on it.
They are tearing down parts of the process of how our government operates. They've taken away the different rules, like the filibuster rule, right? They're talking about packing the courts. They're doing things to tear down the way our system is because they don't like the way the system is because it's restrictive, right? And it's to our detriment, and that's a bad thing. But their goal is to destroy Trump's legacy and everyone who supported him. They want it written in the history books that he was a racist orange tyrant, regardless of the truth, and they won't stop here.
Supported by 77 million Nazis.
Yes, they believe we're all Nazis. They want us to they want it to be written in the history books that is the case. They want us to be afraid to ever say that we voted for him or supported him or supported the things that he believed in. They want to scare us by saying, hey, if you don't, you could get debanked, you could get censored, we could ruin your life. And they do it to enough people. They're hoping that they'll intimidate people into ever advocating for the things that Trump is advocating. They want to crush you and take away your spirit to resist. So the Will Bunch is an author for the Philadelphia Inquirer. He wrote in an article demanding that Republicans that supported Trump be expelled from Congress for their and for there also to be truth and reconciliation councils, which that should terrify you because that is not about truth and reconciliation. It's about shaming those who dared to support Trump through the last 4 years.
I'm going to name my AR Truth and my pistol Reconciliation.
Sounds good. So specifically, he wants to expel the 147 GOP members who contested the election results. I imagine that if they managed somehow to remove the representation from a bunch of states, red states, that there would be an open revolt because those states would not be represented in the government. There would probably be a revolution if they actually went through with that. It could just be rhetoric, but it shows what kind of mindset they have. They want to punish you, and they want to punish anyone who that gets elected who would dare represent your interests.
Now let's play a game here real quick. So we talked about this week and before the show is there's kind of this idea of escalation and division in the country, and you have a lot of people on the right talking about a lot of people on the left too, mostly on the left, but you have a lot of people on the right kind of buying into the premise that we have a lot of escalating tensions in the country and there's division in the country. And in my mind, those words, while they do have slightly different definitions, the way that they're being used in context is that they're implying a two-sidedness to it, that both sides are escalating, both sides are equally divisive and against each other. And so let's take the article, for example. So this would be an example of escalation in rhetoric, calling for the essentially deplatforming of entire states. And then, well, so that's the left is escalating. But like really, Dyer, if you think about it, you saying, hey, I don't think that's a great idea. Isn't that you escalating the rhetoric too?
No, it's not.
Oh.
In fact, I would say that when someone takes a group of people to go to someone's business and then pulls them out on the street and starts beating them to death, that is the escalation. You defending your life with a handgun and killing one of them is not an escalation. It is a reasonable response, right?
Are you sure? I mean, wouldn't it be better? Wouldn't it stop the divisiveness if you were to just let them steal all your stuff and then burn down your business while you're still trapped inside?
That's called appeasement. It was tried in World War II. It doesn't work. In fact, you know what? The only thing appeasement achieved was allowing evil men to do even more evil things. Appeasement doesn't work. Strong men who stand up to evil men is what works.
Yeah. So you guys remember that, because I think that this buzzword of escalation and division, I don't think that's going anywhere anytime soon. I'm hearing it a lot from the right now, from right-wing commentators, and it really drives me crazy every time I hear it, because the way that they're using those words implies that two-sidedness. It is not escalation, or it's not mutual escalation or mutual division when the left is calling to platform entire states, when they're calling 77 million Trump voters Nazis that need to be debanked, put on no-fly lists, unable to participate in society. It's not escalation when you say, hey, don't do that.
Be gone from me, you soy boy beta cock. The transaction is complete.
Hey, this is my first donation. Thanks for being there, guys.
Thank you very much. This is from Atter Lupus. Hopefully I pronounced your name right. He gave us $10. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. No problem.
Appreciate it.
We appreciate you guys being there for us. We're always here. It's you guys that make it worthwhile for us to be here. So, but yeah, keep that in mind as we move forward this year, and throughout the Biden presidency, this continued discussion about escalation, and it's really not our side that's escalating. Now the left is going to try to pretend like, oh well, the Capitol siege, that was the escalation. No, that hardly counts, because they've been using this. So again, we talked about last week, that wasn't anywhere close to having wide support on the right. It wasn't even a large proportion of the right, and it was a one-time thing. And they've been talking like this escalation, this mutual escalation, this mutual division for a really long time. And it's not that everyone needs to cool down the rhetoric. Everybody needs to calm down the divisiveness. No, it's the left that needs to calm down. You've got the left saying, okay, everybody needs to be deplatformed, debanked, kicked off of Twitter, having your businesses shut down, having your states removed from the Union. And the right is just saying, hey, what if you guys left us alone? No, when you're talking about everyone's being divisive and it's tearing America apart. No. We are not tearing apart America. The left is tearing away from us. That is where it's at. So reject, and if you hear anybody talking about that, well, it's the whole country that's being divisive, or well, it's the whole country that's got escalation as rhetoric. No, you got to push back on that, because this idea, again, this little game I was just playing with Dyer, is the saying that both sides are escalating. When you play through that thought experiment of, well, both sides need to just stop escalating, what does it look like when our side stops escalating? Well, it looks like you got executed while somebody was mugging you, or it looks like you got burned alive inside your small business, or it looks like you're, I guess in this case, if you stopped escalating, I guess your state just doesn't have representation in the Union anymore.
Exactly. So it's kind of like this. You have two individuals. One represents the Democrats, one represents the Republicans. The Democrat guy has been, for the last year, just constantly punching the Republican in the face over and over and over again. And now the Republican throws one punch back, and the Democrat steps back with his hands up saying, whoa, dude, stop escalating.
Well, no. Well, here's the problem, though. It wasn't even the one, if you're in that analogy, the Capitol riot is the one punch back, but no, before that, and this kind of language has been going on for a long time, but it kind of clicked for me how to describe what was making me upset about it this week, why I'm talking about it now. But this kind of concepts made me upset for a while, because even before that, I'll use Nick Sandmann again, a white child smiling is considered escalation to the left. Just your mere existence is an escalation on the left. So how would Nick, and again, going through that thought experiment, and I challenge you guys to do this when you hear this rhetoric that, well, both sides are escalating, both sides are divisive. Think through whatever the situation is that's being discussed. Think through what it would mean for the right to not escalate or be divisive in that situation. So, let's look at Nick Sandmann. How would Nick Sandmann be less escalation, less divisive? I mean, should he have frowned? Should he have just not gone to DC? Should he have just ceased existence? Because I can't really think of a way for Nick Sandmann to have de-escalated. You've got Kyle Rittenhouse. How would Kyle Rittenhouse have de-escalated? Just sitting there taking a bullet to the skull from a couple of pedophiles? How would you can go through this again? Go through a dozen more examples like that. But again, the thought experiment, when you hear somebody talking about mutual escalation, mutual division between the right and the left that's tearing apart this country, whatever the context is, you need to think through, what does it mean for the right to not escalate in this situation? And you're going to come to, almost all of these examples you're going to come to is that, wow, there really isn't a way for the left or for the right to be less escalated or less divisive, because they're not actually doing anything. They're just being attacked by the left.
So going back to further escalation in the recent news cycle from the left, the Washington Post columnist Edwin Robinson and New York Times
Be gone from me, you soy boy beta cock. The transaction is complete.
The Democrats have been pulling this crap for my entire life. They don't say Democrats were responsible for slavery. They say America was responsible for it. They blamed the whole country for what they've done, even though the rest of us fought them.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
so,
it's absolutely true.
Yeah, you think back to Civil War time. It's like, well, really the slaves, they need to stop escalating by wanting freedom.
It's them running away, and fighting back against their slavers. That's the escalation.
Yeah,
right?
that's causing the escalation.
The violence.
Yeah. Or we were talking before the show is the Jews in Nazi Germany. It's like, well, the Jews not wanting to have their stuff smashed up and get put into ghettos, like them not wanting that to happen. It's like they're escalating. That's being divisive. Is not wanting the Nazis to do that to them. So again, you just think through these thought experiments when you hear somebody calling out that, well, it's mutual escalation, it's mutual divisiveness. I'm really, really tired of again, a lot of people on the right, because when they're using that rhetoric to try to describe it as two-sidedness, it doesn't, that's not a correct interpretation of reality. The correct interpretation of reality is that the left is attacking us. Again, I don't think I need to go through and prove that. I think this whole series of shows that we do kind of goes through to prove that. But if you're looking at it as, well, it's the right attacking too, that doesn't really get you to the end goal of, well, we really just need the left to calm down. But if your right-wing commentators and the mainstream media are saying like, well, it's both sides. Well, again, how does the right stay more calm? I don't see any way for us to stay more calm other than to literally just allow the left to destroy us as people.
I want to point out that a lot of people, their understanding of what happened to the Jews in World War II happens around the time where the Jews were just being persecuted. They don't look at the lead up to it. There was a long time prior to where Jews were not being persecuted, but it was a slow burn as they started off with rhetoric where they would just be use dehumanizing language towards them, be derogatory towards them, but they weren't actually physically persecuting them. That went for a long time. A lot of the things that they're doing now to Republicans and conservatives, the language, the way they speak about them, is somewhat similar, actually. And then they started to debank them. They started to censor them. They started to put legal restrictions on them and that all happened.
They started chaining up their
them.
schools and playgrounds. Oh wait, no, sorry, that was New York this summer.
Yeah, they disarmed them, and they did all these things before they ever started shoving them into ghettos. Before they ever started putting them on trains, they persecuted them so much that many Jews left the country because they saw the writing on the wall. A lot of the ones that stayed are the ones that got put in those camps.
But we don't got anywhere to go, and there's a lot more conservatives than there was Jews too. There's nowhere to go even for a few of us. America's kind of the last liberty refuge there. And even if there was somewhere to go, it wouldn't be able to absorb 70 million of us.
I'm not saying it's going to play out the same way. I'm just saying that kind of division that leads to a large part of the population wanting to eradicate people from their society, it's the same way they're speaking about them.
If the Jews had just stopped escalating.
They just kept escalating, and then one of the things that really pushed along is they got persecuted, and then there was some moments of Jewish people fighting back, and those were highlighted by the media as examples of why everything they said was true. That the Jews are criminals who are destroying society because, look, this riot in these ghettos, it proves everything we've been saying is true. And that's what they're going to do to you. If you fight back, they're gonna say, "Oh, this is evidence of everything we've been saying about the Republicans." But going back to what I was saying about the New York Times article and the Washington Post article, rather, and New York Times magazine's Nicole Hannah-Jones, they stated in that article that they needed for millions of Americans, almost all white, almost all Republicans, to be deprogrammed and punished before the country could move on and for there to be reconciliation. They have to punish the Republicans, not politicians, not Trump. You and me, who supported him, have to be punished and deprogrammed. And they've already been talking about putting us in camps. Like, how far off are we from wearing yellow stars with that kind of rhetoric, right?
Would it be lions or elephants this time?
I don't know. But the point is, I mean, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that's the language they're using to describe what they want to do to us. That's escalation. Us saying, hey, no, that sounds horrible. You're horrible for saying it is not escalation.
Well, and to make an effort... To make an effort to not invoke Godwin's law to bring up Nazis, really.
Already did it. Sorry.
I know. but to find an alternate route for that is, the left is suggesting that they do to us the exact same thing that every single communist regime from 1945 to now, every communist regime all around the world that has had a quote unquote revolution. They've all done the exact same kind of thing with re-education camps, labor camps, and, other kinds of camps. every time that they've taken over. We saw that in China. We saw that all over Latin America. We see that in other Asian countries all over the place. It is the leftist playbook is communism, and communism has but one playbook. It plays out the same every single time. And we see right now a lot of the rhetoric on the left is working their damnedest to try to make sure that that can happen here.
Right. So another example of escalation from the Democrats was the Democrats have also conducted even more political censorship. AOC, and they said that they want to conduct more censorship. AOC suggested that they have commissions to rein in the media. The goal being is any media company or organization that supported Trump or said anything positive about them, they need to be destroyed too. They need to make sure the Democrats need to make sure that they have complete control of all information that you have. So I want to remind you that under Obama and Biden, journalists were investigated, intimidated, and arrested for reporting negatively on the regime.
And their families were targeted as well.
Yes. And in one case, stuff was loaded by intelligence agencies onto someone's computer to try to fabricate evidence against them of committing crimes. So Trump, however, criticized the media. And according to the Democrats, him criticizing the media, that was way worse. And they elected somebody who was part of a regime who literally put journalists in jail for reporting the news. So yes, they are very much for censoring the media as well, and they will go after media companies that supported Trump.
Speaking of media companies, do you do our next story?
No, I got one more line.
Oh, geez. Well, let's go. We did an hour on this story.
One more thing. We only have a few stories. So AOC also says recently that she wants to. We need to liberate southern states.
AOC says the South will rise again.
She's.
Navy Snipe. You're gonna support AOC now?
So she's saying basically that they need to remove the government in power in the southern states. She's mostly saying are Republican states.
Does she mean the Republican states that are suppressing the Democrat Jim Crow that is suppressing the Democrat-led slave states? Is that what she means? Because under Democrat rule, those states weren't very how we say progressive.
They were slave states.
Yeah.
That is escalating in rhetoric. Nothing the Republicans have done or said escalates to the point of what she's essentially calling for a civil war. Okay, next story.
All right. So speaking of the media, we have the ABCs of rape this week.
That's a hell of a title there.
Yeah, I know. I do my best for that. More for us than for everybody else. But okay, so we had this week on ABC. You might have forgotten. ABC didn't forget about Jacob Blake, noted rapist and child abductor, who was cured over the summer when a police officer shot him in the spine 7 times, paralyzing him, making sure that he was cured from his desire to rape, or at least his ability.
I applaud the officer and their effort.
So now, as we know, this was widely touted as another unarmed black man being executed by the police, even though he didn't die and he was armed. But that didn't stop all the events in Kenosha happening and Kyle Rittenhouse and all of that great, lovely stuff that we covered over the summer. But after some of the smoke cleared and the dust settled, it was pretty quickly figured out that Jacob Blake, he had an arrest warrant out for him because he had been raping his baby mama for several years. At the time of his attempted arrest and his curing of his desire to rape, he was at the house of the woman that he had raped a few days prior in front of their children. And he was abducting the children that he did not have custody of in her car that he was stealing from her. And the police showed up and stopped him from doing that. Now, again, this was touted as an unarmed, innocent black man who was just merely raping somebody and stealing their kids. And the
just want to remind you that Kamala Harris said that he was was it the most inspirational?
She said, it was inspiring and it was her hero. Which makes Jacob Blake only the second rapist that is Kamala's hero. Joe Biden being the first. So we had, and actually, I'm not going to say what I was going to say, but again, we went over this a bunch last year, towards the end of last year. It was shown Jacob Blake was a rapist. He was illegally abducting children that he did not have custody over. He was stealing a car. He did have a knife on him. There was every reason to shoot him the way that they did after he had resisted arrest and the police had tried to talk him down for several minutes. All this stuff we already know. So ABC, we already know all this stuff. ABC seems to have forgotten it, and they decided to interview Jacob Blake this week. And they gave him a nice flowery, puffy interview that was very interesting. We're going to watch it. But there's some interesting segments here that seem to forget all of that stuff that we know about Jacob Blake. Let's watch.
Exclusive. Jacob Blake, in his first interview since he was shot and partially paralyzed by a police officer in August. And since then, the Kenosha County District Attorney announced last week the officers involved will not be charged. And Michael, we know you had a chance to sit down with Jacob.
I had a chance to sit down with him on Tuesday, Robin. And Jacob Blake is a 29-year-old black man who was shot 7 times by a white officer in front of 2 of his children, leaving him partially paralyzed. Again, 2 of his children that, yes, he was the father of. He did not have custody, and he was abducting them. Just context, important context. You know, again,
with a weapon.
Well, we'll get to that. Don't spoil it till we get to it, Dyer. And this morning, he's telling his side of the story for the first time. You didn't
because the side of the story that I just told you, you know, it makes him look kind of bad.
Resist.
Yeah.
I resisted to getting beat on, and what I mean by that is not falling, not letting them put their head on my neck. That's all I was thinking, honestly.
This morning, Jacob Blake is speaking out for the first time, almost 5 months after being shot 7 times by police, leaving him partially paralyzed.
I was counting down my breaths and my blinks. I'm just like, God, I'm coming. I guess this is it for me.
All unfolding as his sons watch from the backseat of that car.
His son said he does not have custody over, that he was illegally abducting in a car, not his car, that he was stealing.
I was like, he's shooting me. I couldn't believe it, so I kind of sat down in the car trying to do this. Put my hands up because I didn't want him to shoot me in my face or in my head or nothing. He just kept shooting.
So what's going through your mind?
My babies are right here.
His babies that he raped their mother in front of them 2 days prior, just for context.
He's okay with them seeing that, but not him getting shot. Let's see what the line is.
Yeah, you know. It's, yeah, I wonder if she put her hands up when he was raping her. You think that maybe?
Yeah, I wonder.
So after he stopped shooting me, I said, Daddy, love you, no matter what. I thought it was going to be the last.
I doubt he said that. I wonder what he told his kids.
I'm pretty sure he said, ah!
Yeah, I wonder what he told his kids after they watched him rape their mother.
I said, ah!
That was the worst thing you've ever said on this show, Dyer.
I thought it was going to be the last thing I say to them. Thank God it wasn't.
The incident once again sparking protests across the country, adding fuel to a fire that had been burning all summer since the police killing of George Floyd.
I didn't want to be the next George Floyd. I didn't want to die.
It was August 23rd, and Blake was at the house of LaQuisha Booker, the mother of 3 of his children. They were celebrating their son Israel's 8th birthday.
Now, that had actually been the first time that I've heard her name, because up until this report, her name has been initials only in all legal documents because they were trying to protect her identity. Because again, he raped her, stole her children, stole her car, and he had been raping her for quite some time, had been abusive. There's several prosecutions for domestic abuse against her over the course of years. Several times that he raped her, several times that he's stolen stuff from her.
And she called the police on him.
Yes. So it had been for a long time after this happened that nobody knew who she was because there was a lot of fear that the mob would turn against her. And I don't know. I mean, I this is the first I've heard of her name being mentioned, and all the legal documents I looked at to confirm and review the story. And just again, the stuff that I'm saying to you guys, I've got that as documented evidence as to what is in police reports, what is in what has been charged with, prosecuted with, etc. That's why I'm saying all this stuff very confidently. Again, we've already reported on this throughout last year. But
it's also really telling that they're not questioning her. They're not talking to her about this.
Yes. Yeah, I would exactly. And that was what we had said a long time ago too, I believe, is that, well, I wonder what her side of the story is, but we knew that she couldn't give it because the mob would destroy her. And I even the more recent legal documents, her name is still initialed. So I'm wondering, it's possible this is some of the first time that the public's hearing what her name is. So great on ABC for putting her name out there like this.
She clearly did not consent to being interviewed, and she has definitely went through a lot of effort to make sure that all those legal documents didn't have her real name. There's a pretty good chance she's not okay with this.
When an argument broke out between Booker and a neighbor.
So I just wanted to get them, I wanted to leave. My son is inside. Tears was coming out of his eyes. And he said, "Daddy, you sure it's my birthday?" I'm like, yeah, you know,
that part was false too. So what he just said was that the mom and the neighbor were fighting, and they were trying to imply, again, this story that Blake was breaking up a fight. That was what was initially reported. The initial report the day of was that Jacob Blake had been a good Samaritan citizen trying to break up a cat fight between two girls that were neighbors. And he was just trying to break up the fight. White police officer rolled up on scene, just unloaded into him. The truth of the matter is that there was no dispute with the neighbor. That was all fake news. The only dispute was that Jacob Blake had a restraining order, or this girl had a restraining order against Jacob Blake. He had raped her a few days prior, and then he was now stealing her children and her car. That was the dispute. This idea that there was a dispute with the neighbor, that was debunked months ago, and this is a interview that aired on ABC like 3 days ago.
I was like, I'm taking them to the store again, make them forget about all this.
As Blake prepares to leave, Booker calls police.
I'm willing to take that emergency. Yes, I need an officer. Jacob Blake is here, and he has the keys to a rental that I purchased that I need to take back, and he's not trying to release it.
That doesn't sound like
Police
a cat fight,
respond
does
to
it?
a quote.
Yeah, that's weird, right? Like, why would, if she was having a dispute with her neighbor, why would he steal her keys?
Yeah, see, that the reason why the police were called had nothing to do with a cat fight, huh?
No,
had to do with
weird.
him stealing a car.
Huh? It's weird.
Huh?
Family trouble. They're told there's a warrant for Blake on domestic violence offenses and sexual assault. What are you doing when they show up?
At that time, I'm walking out. I hadn't done anything, so I didn't feel.
Not that day. 2 days prior, he had raped her, and then at that time, he did have stolen car keys in his hand. He had children that weren't his, in a legal sense, in the car that he didn't have custody over, in a car that wasn't his, and he was planning on driving away with them. It's called kidnapping.
I feel like they were there for me.
Blake proceeds to put one of his sons in the car.
He raped a girl and then stole her children, and in his mind, he can't fathom why the police would be there for him.
Maybe he's stupid, though. Maybe he just can't fathom.
Oh, no, it's absolutely that he is unfunctionally retarded. That doesn't excuse it.
Okay.
Car, and one of his sons in the car, and that's when he says he felt someone grab his arm.
I took my arm away in a human reaction. After I did that, I realized that it was the police, and it's like, uh-oh, because when I did that, he slammed me up against the truck.
Before the cop grabbed you, did they say anything to you?
No, not at all.
And so that's a lie. There is
There's audio.
From the there's audio. There's also from the police report that the several minutes of discussing it with him before any kind of conflict arose. They were sitting there talking, and this is what we hear every single time: is the police just rolled up and immediately unloaded on him. And then when the body cam footage, the witness testimony comes out, this other cell phone videos come out. It's like, oh wait, yeah, the police tried to talk to him for like 40 minutes before any of this happened.
And the problem is that CNN. This is CNN, right? Or is it ABC? Sorry, ABC. ABC has all this information available to them, and they're just letting him say these things uncountered, creating the narrative in people's minds who have only seen this story and not seen the evidence that the things he's saying are true, because they're not actually being journalists and pushing back on the obvious lies he's making. What we're doing right now is not hard.
And really, again, this is typically an opinion show, but what I'm explaining to you is not opinion. It's factual context alongside this video. This is funny. Normally, we look at a news report and we give our commentary, our opinion on the news report. Right now, we're looking at a supposed news report that is actually pure opinion, and we're giving you the facts of it, but it looks like we're giving you our opinion. It's funny. It's a weird reversal.
Yeah.
According to the Wisconsin Criminal Investigation Report, Officer Shesky recalled saying, quote, "Let's talk about this." He said Blake put his child in the car and turned to face him. Shesky said he then grabbed Blake's arm to put him under arrest and told Blake that he had a warrant.
Stop the
They
video.
didn't say why they were there.
He just showed that there was a conversation before grabbing his arm.
Yeah, but that police officer is white. He's probably lying, right? Because he's part of the KKK and part of Trump's like Nazi America and black genocide and all that stuff, right?
He needs to go to a camp.
Yeah, probably. They keep saying Blake's children, which is true in a biological sense, but Blake was unemployed for a long time and in and out of jail for a long time, never paid child support, based off the reports from this woman. When he did interact with her, it wasn't to take care of the kids, it was to rape her and steal things from her. It seemed like he was taking the children from her based off the context out of a punishment or something mean to do to her. It wasn't because he wanted to go do something for them. And again, whether or not you want to be a part of your child's life, if you're not, if you do or don't have legal custody, it's probably not best to do that in a stolen car. So again, context, not legally his kids, definitely not legally his car. He's just casually, stealing kids in a stolen car and all that stuff.
They didn't say anything to me.
Did they tell you that they had a warrant for your arrest?
No.
Some sort of struggle follows. Police believe Blake is reaching for a weapon more than once. Blake denies this. Police deploy a taser multiple times. Blake pulls the taser prongs out of his skin. Officer Shesky and Blake end up in a physical altercation on the ground. We see you walk away from the officers after they try to grab you.
I'm rattled. I realized I had dropped my knife.
All right, hold on.
Blake is reaching for a struggle.
We're gonna loop back the last 30 seconds there. We're gonna loop back the last 30 seconds there.
Well, that comes at you fast, right?
Let's listen to it very carefully. I'm sure you guys will pick up on it. I'm gonna say the key words along with them.
Follows. Police believe Blake is reaching for a weapon more than once. Blake denies this.
Blake denies
this. Police deploy
this.
a taser multiple times.
Blake denies having
Blake
a weapon.
pulls the taser prongs out of his skin. Officer Shesky and Blake end up in a physical altercation on the ground. We see you walk away from the officers after they try to grab you.
I'm rattled. I realized I had dropped my knife.
I dropped my knife.
Okay, so was Jacob Blake unarmed? Possibly, no. But only because he dropped his knife. So what is incredible about this? So you have, we used to have a situation where, we would debunk the media like after the fact. Then we had situations where, that debunking came sooner and sooner after the article, or there would be articles, ABC would put out an article about one thing, and then the next article they put out would debunk the previous one. Now, this year, this past year, 2020, we saw the advent of the live inline debunking, where media outlets will regularly say something in one sentence, and then in the same article or the same news segment, in the next sentence, immediately debunk what they had just said, where they will, there's the time between saying a falsehood and debunking yourself is essentially nothing. So we have right there where the ABC interviewer is saying, he's narrating, Jacob Blake denies having a weapon. The next sentence you hear out of Jacob Blake's mouth within 25 seconds is, well, I dropped my knife.
So I would normally default, if this were live, that ABC had set him up so he could lie and just get his false narrative out there. And then he was so dumb he couldn't even lie right. But that's not true, because they edited this video heavily, did a narration over it, and they still let that in.
Yeah, so this guy, I can't remember what this interviewer's name is. He's a complete idiot though. He sat there, he did the interview. He knows what was in the interview. He knows Jacob Blake told him in the interview that he had a knife. And then after they did the interview, the interviewer goes and does the voiceover narrative saying, well, Jacob Blake claims he didn't have a knife. And then he doesn't see any issue with that. And then they had some editor and producer producing and editing the segment and clipping it together. And they must have seen, as they were editing, oh, you know what? Maybe it was kind of, maybe it was a mistake for him to have the interviewer to have recorded that voiceover saying that when the interview clearly says the opposite of that. We'll just give a call to Mulligan on that one, and we won't put that voiceover clip in this. We'll just have him retake it. No, they're like, yeah, I don't see any issue with having the narrator say, Jacob Blake claims to not have had a weapon, and then have Jacob Blake himself, a video of Jacob Blake, his mouth moving live, say, yes, I had a knife. It is insane to me. And they just move on with the story. There's no need. It doesn't matter. It's the history of now, except for now. The history of now used to kind of imply like, today, like the past week, the past month, things happening in the, the relative now. The history of now means like sentence by sentence. Well, You can't hold him to what he said 25 seconds ago. That was 25 seconds ago. That's not, you can't hold somebody to that standard. That's forever ago. That's a whole 25 seconds ago. It's as now. It's today. It's right now.
I assume they are assuming that their audience is so stupid or so tribalist that they would not see a problem with that edit.
Yeah, we're gonna play that one more time because it's my favorite thing I heard today.
Some sort of struggle follows. Police believe Blake is reaching for a weapon more than once. Blake denies this. Police deploy a taser multiple times. Blake pulls the taser prongs out of his skin. Officer Shesky and Blake end up in a physical altercation on the ground. We see you walk away from the officers after they try to grab you.
I'm rattled. I realized I had dropped my knife. I had a little pocket knife. So I picked it up after I got off of him because they tased me and I fell on top of him.
With an open knife in hand that Blake says fell out of his pocket, he walks around the front of the vehicle towards the driver's side door. What are you thinking at that point?
So that knife was open. It was like a switchblade type knife. Yeah, don't walk around with an open switchblade in your pocket.
Towards kids with to steal a vehicle.
That's
for the police.
Nylon shorts and an open blade in your pocket. That's a quick way to circumcise yourself, for sure.
Yes. I would point out that anyone else in the exact same situation would have the exact same circumstances. He is not special because he is black or for any other reason.
Well, no, he's not just posing. He's not just Black Dyer. He's an unarmed black guy with a knife.
He is posing a direct threat to those kids, and the police were called there to protect the mother and the kids from this guy. They would be derelict in their duty if they let him drive away with a weapon.
Well, let's play the escalation game. So, the police were escalating, and Jacob Blake was escalating. Let's say the police didn't escalate. Well, then she would have gotten raped. Her kids would have been stolen in her stolen car. Really though, it's on the police. They are the ones that escalated the situation. If they had
and so now she doesn't have a vehicle, so she can't get to work.
Well, she can't go find her kids. Like, she's just if she's
kids.
not able to access the police, because again, and the escalation game is, what does it look like? Well, the police never escalate, so they never go get her kids back.
Right, because if they did, they'd be escalating.
Yeah,
they'd be
exactly.
causing violence by going in and protecting those kids and that woman.
It's really divisive. It's really divisive for the police to go get her kids back, right?
This only makes sense if you believe that your actions shouldn't have consequences.
Yes, it does. So again, playing the escalation game. Let's see here. All right.
I'm walking away from them, so it's not like they're gonna shoot me. I shouldn't have picked it up, only considering what was going on.
Walking away from them, so I didn't think they were going to shoot me. Yes, you were walking away from them after they had told you, hey, we got an arrest warrant for you, raping your baby mama.
You're resisting arrest.
You're resisting arrest. You've picked up a weapon, and you're now getting into a stolen car that has children in it that aren't yours.
Going on. At that time, I wasn't thinking clearly.
Yes, you were thinking
The only
once you
true
get the
thing he
knife
said.
into the car, you were going to just say,
still nothing.
Throw myself to the ground, and
Okay. Let's listen to that part again. Sorry, I interrupted it.
Considering what was going on. At that time, I wasn't thinking clearly.
You were thinking once you get the knife into the car, you were going to just say,
throw myself to the ground.
Yeah, because as we all know, I mean, like, knife storage is really, really important. Like, you can't just leave that shit lying around. That's dangerous. Like, a kid could pick it up. So it's really, really important that you get that knife put away before interacting or surrendering to the cops. It's really, again, knife safety. It's very, very important. I mean, he was really, really just looking out for the public there. He's basically a hero. He's certainly Kamala Harris's hero.
And, put my arms behind my back. Because if they did it there and they killed me there, everybody would see it.
According to the Wisconsin Criminal Investigative Report, Officer Shesky says that Blake drove the knife towards Shesky's body. Blake denies this. Blake opens the car door, and at that moment, Officer Shesky grabs the back of Blake's shirt and starts shooting. You said that we can just look at the video.
It was a good
video
shoot.
Tells everything.
I
There's
stand
going to
by
be a lot
that.
of people who look at the video and say, in the video, you're walking away from the police. So why didn't he just stop and do what the police are asking him to do?
I couldn't hear that. All I heard was screaming. My ears was ringing, so it was all muffled.
If the police
He didn't hear that the police probably wanted him to stop, after them tasing him and, holding him down and talking to him for several minutes prior. Again, I gotta wonder. I gotta wonder, kind of a similar situation for the girl that he was raping. I wonder what she thought about. I wonder what she could hear if it was ringing in her ears when he was raping her. If she was trying to get them to stop and didn't really realize why it was going on and was having a hard time focusing and concentrating. I wonder all of that. I wonder what the last thoughts going through her head were. I wonder if this is going to be the last time he does this because he'll kill me after or something like that. You gotta wonder.
I have zero concern for the well-being of someone who is a rapist multiple times, a wife beater multiple times, who is actively resisting arrest for the purpose of stealing that woman's car who he had already raped and beat, and also the stealing of her children. In that situation, I give zero fucks about his well-being and don't buy the tears. Fuck off.
The problem with the left here in this situation is this is those are really racist, low expectations. The bigotry of low expectations. So they think that what the left wants you to think is that Jacob Blake is not mentally disabled, not a mentally disabled criminal. They want you to think that Jacob Blake's a normal black person and that normal black people act like this. I reject that fully.
That is ridiculous.
But that's what the left is proposing this as. That's why they're giving it the time of day, is that, well, Jacob Blake wasn't acting irrationally. He's acting as a normal black person should. It's a rational human black person that he's acting like, when that's just simply not the case. In the left's mind, bigotry of low expectations, they probably do think that. I, again, however, reject that notion. I think that black people are perfectly capable of being smart, rational people because I know a lot of them, and I've seen it, and because they're people who have brains and functioning prefrontal cortexes that can make complex decisions
and autonomy. You know?
Yes.
Yeah,
For
that
fighting
is. You're sorry. You continue.
If they were tasing me, I would stop walking away from them, and they would have my attention.
I mean, I had not left or tried to run at that point. That when they tased me, I had my hands up.
I wasn't trying to escape. I was just trying to get in the car. That wasn't mine.
Officer Shesky's attorney says Blake was given every opportunity to comply, but he chose not to, and insists that, quote, the officers acted according to their training. According to records released in a Wisconsin criminal investigation report, in the past, Blake has been arrested for attempting to flee police and for resisting arrest. These charges were dropped. There are critics who are going to say, well, he's had run-in with the law in the past. He doesn't deserve any sympathy.
If you're a black person in America and you're not perfect, then they say, oh, it was justified. It's like our children have to be angels.
Is that how you describe a rapist as just not being perfect? That's new.
Yeah. Again, this idea that raping and kidnapping is a just classic part of the black experience. And that that's just something that all black people do, and so it's not really a big deal that Jake did. He's not particularly special in the fact that he's a rapist and a kidnapper. That's just what all black people do. That's what the left is trying to explain here. That's what they're trying to pretend, to try and make it look like Jacob Blake's a regular person when he's really not. He's criminal scum who is in the act of horrific, not just regular crime, not just like a little shoplifting here and there. No, he's in the middle of extremely violent crime and kidnapping children. And the left is trying to, again, pretend that he's just this innocent, unarmed black man. And that does not... If Jacob Blake is the standard that the left is trying to hold up, and Kamala Harris saying that he's her hero, they're trying to hold this up as a standard for the pinnacle of what black people are. What is a black man? Well, he's a rapist and a kidnapper. I reject that. I reject that fully.
We all know that the far left activists who put on the BLM shirts and go by Antifa, they will riot over any excuse, and they're just looking for any black person being killed to be the excuse for them to destroy property and harm people, because they want to see everything burn. They don't care about black people. A lot of people who are marching and rioting in the name of BLM are not friends of black people. They are very racist themselves, and you hear that from the things they say to black officers and people who are black who are not, destroying things alongside them. They are some of the most violent racists you'll run into. But despite that, I think that the media, like ABC, bears a lot of responsibility for running the very false story. This story right here, this interview shows they know their reporting was false, and they're not retracting it. Their false reporting convinced a lot of people to also join those radical leftists in rioting. Their reporting resulted in violence and destruction because the thing is, if someone's being legitimately attacked, or the people like them, if let's say the black community really is being murdered by police, that creates fear, anger, and violence from that group. And the same thing happens if you convince them it's happening even when it's not. You create fear, anger, and violence if you convince someone that those things things are happening, even if they're not. So their reporting is directly responsible for the amount of people who were convinced to join those riots, and they're responsible for the amount of damage and human suffering caused by those riots.
So, ABC wasn't the only esteemed mainstream media outlet to have a fantastic interview this week. We also had... Yes, that's being sarcastic. We also had CNN.
Fire peaceful, right?
Yes. Well, it's just peaceful. I don't even see any fire there. What you talking
I don't
about?
see fire. I'm not a racist.
Yeah. Oh man. Ooh, that was a good one. Okay, so CNN this week, they interviewed, they had Anderson Cooper interviewed somebody named John Sullivan, who on the Chiron said that he was founder of Insurgency USA, which I think, if you guys will bear with me for a second here, I think I actually have this video somewhere loaded up. There we go. I found it. Okay.
I'm going to make that to a t-shirt.
What's that?
I'm going to make that into a t-shirt.
What's that? Fire.
I don't see fire.
Oh, I don't see fire. Is that a racist? Let's see here. So, actually, I thought this was a shorter clip, but this one's not. So I don't think we're going to watch very much of this. So, but basically, Anderson Cooper, he interviewed somebody named John Cooper, also known as Jaden X. And Jaden X was in this interview was styling himself as a on the ground modern media reporter, a journalist of sorts. And Anderson Cooper was addressing him as a journalist because Jaden was on the ground at the Capitol siege doing journalism, and CNN, they're journalists. They're news, and the journalists talk to other journalists, especially ones that are on the ground and, high-strung events like the Capitol siege. And so Anderson Cooper was interviewing Jaden about his journalism, and being the journalist that he was, Jaden saw what the MAGA, the Trump supporters, were doing at the Capitol. And he told Anderson Cooper all the bad, naughty things that the MAGA people were doing, that they were running about, causing a ruckus, they were breaking down doors and violence and all this stuff. And Anderson Cooper was just sitting there eating it all up as part of the narrative that Orange Man was bad, Orange Man supporters are even worse, and that the idea that the Capitol siege was a insurrection ordered by Donald J. Trump himself. The problem is, though, a lot of people had said last week and the week before, there were some theories that some of, not all, but some of the violence that happened at the Capitol riots, the Capitol siege, was instigated by Antifa. There were some people that noted that it was weird that there was a large Trump rally in D.C., but there was no corresponding Antifa counter rally, which was nearly a first. And so there was some speculation that perhaps Antifa had blended into the Trump crowd and that they were part of the Capitol siege.
Wild speculation.
Speculation. So now we last week we said that was definitely a possibility, but that doesn't discount there was a lot of regular MAGA Trump supporters
they were there.
that were there. So we, while it was probably true, and we now know that it is true. At the time, we said it was kind of irrelevant because it doesn't discount the fact that there was a lot of, again, quote unquote, people on the right that had entered into the building, and they should not have done that.
Yeah, that's not a defense of the right. That's just a further implication of the left.
Yeah. So, Jaden. So, again, CNN is interviewing this guy as a journalist, and this guy is telling Cooper and CNN all the bad things that Trump supporters were doing at the Capitol riots. Well, this photo is the same Jaden the day after his interview with Anderson Cooper, and this is a mugshot. And while he might be confused,
those crazy AOC eyes.
Yeah, he may be confused for AOC's brother there, or maybe just AOC with her hair back. I don't know. The reason why he's got a mugshot is because he was arrested by the FBI because as it turns out, he is Antifa. I don't know if he's 100% Antifa, but he's certainly Antifa.
He's an organizer of Antifa, actually.
Yes. Well, so Insurgency USA, which he founded, is an Antifa organization. It is an organization with an explicit goal of overthrowing the United States. That's why it's called
and he's organized
Insurgency
events.
USA.
He's actually organized events with that organization.
Yes. And the reason why the FBI arrested him the day after he had an interview with Anderson Cooper was because it turns out that he wasn't doing journalism at the Capitol siege. He was leading a part of it.
I know it's hard to distinguish between instigating violence and journalism because the media, the left-wing media, mix them up so often, but there is a difference.
Yeah, so I'm going to try and play a little bit of the Anderson Cooper interview. We'll see if I can get to the part where I'm looking for, because I don't want to play the whole 4 minutes. But at one point, he'll talk about that the MAGA people were breaking into doors. And then I'm going to play you the video, because while Jaden's not necessarily a journalist, he was taking video that day, and he very proudly uploaded it to YouTube, which YouTube hasn't taken down yet. And we can see in the video, we'll see what he tells Anderson Cooper, that it was the MAGA people doing it. Then we'll see in the video, spoiler alert, Jaden is the one who told them to beat down the door, and then they did it. So let's watch a few of these things.
Now documentary filmmaker Jade Sacker and left-wing activist John Sullivan. John, you filmed this moment on your phone. Can you describe what happened?
Yeah, so basically all the protesters kind of stormed to get into the chamber. We tried to get into the main entrance right when you walk down the hallway. But that being said, nobody was able to get in because there's 2 guards refusing to move. People there were not really wanting to hurt the police, so they went down a different alleyway. They went to the left of the main entrance of the chambers, and then took a right down the hallway that entered into that glass window scene that you see. There were about 4 or 5 police officers right at the forefront, and I remember just coming up and seeing one of them crying, saying they want to go home to their kids, and
one of the police officers
were just yeah, one of the police officers. It was kind of like a scene out of either all he sees is thousands of these protesters kind of converge on them, yelling, saying, let us in here, we're not trying to hurt you. I ended up talking to a few of them. I said, hey, we can just make a path for you to get through. By no means am I there on the Trump side or the MAGA side, but I don't want to see people get hurt unnecessarily.
Right. There we go. He's not there on the Trump side or the MAGA side. Well, that's for damn sure. Let's watch. We heard what he sold Anderson. Let's watch what he uploaded to his channel. Now this is part of a. Let me see here. Okay, so this is part of a long 40-minute segment that he uploaded. So he's Jaden X on YouTube. If you guys want to go see the longer version of this clip, which I'm actually surprised that this is still up on YouTube, because part of this clip shows the woman who was shot by Capitol Police. Turns out that happened right after Jaden had. Well, why don't we watch it? Here? Let me see. I was going to find the timestamp here. Is this 34:10? Let's see here. Okay.
Let me through. I got a knife. I got a knife.
All right. So the guy yelling, "I got a knife! I got a knife!" That's actually Jaden. So he's in the crowd. So this door that you're seeing up here, that's the door where the woman who got shot, that's where she's going to get shot at in about 2 minutes. This video shows her hitting the ground. There is no, I will stop it before there's any blood, but it doesn't actually show her getting hit. It just shows her falling down.
Do journalists usually bring weapons, journalists that aren't trying to kill conservatives, do they usually bring weapons?
Usually if they need security, they'll have other security. They won't themselves be...
Would they be yelling it out? Hey, I got a weapon, I got a weapon?
Yeah, that's weird. So again, this is a very long 40-minute clip, which we don't have time to watch all of it. There's some... I jumped around on it before the show. There's some other parts where this was the door to the Senate chamber that they're trying to get into, that's leading to the main hallway to get to the Senate chamber, there was other doors. And Jaden is, behind the camera. He's around with them. They're scavenge hunting for doors that they can try to break down. And he's testing doors. He's directing people to go try to see if they can break down other doors. He's an active part trying to get people. Again, that's not to say that a lot of these people, they've all got agency. They shouldn't be there. They are their own people. That's on them. But Jaden's walking around giving a little bit of direction to the mob. And we know from mob mentality, it doesn't take a lot of direction to get them going the direction that you want. You just need somebody who's showing a little bit of leadership, and the mob will form around them. Again, that's not discounting that all of these people have agency. They all have personal responsibility. But the accusation was that Antifa was there instigating things. And I'm about to show you a video of somebody who's Antifa instigating things. Not a conspiracy theory, just a thing that happened.
They're leaving. They're leaving. They're leaving.
Pushing his way to the front of the crowd. Pushing his way to the front of the crowd.
These guys ain't the ones that's the fuck the blue! We want you to go home. I'm recording, and there's so many people. It's just they're gonna push their way up here. Bro, I see people out there get hurt. I don't want to see you get hurt. We will make a path dead ass.
All right.
He's trying to get the police officer to.
Yep. So right now, Jaden is talking to the police officers, trying to convince them to leave. So keep that in mind. And then I just stopped. I paused it right as he was saying it, but I just rolled back a little bit so you hear it again. He's trying to convince the police officers to leave. He's saying, we don't want to hurt you, but we will we will go through you if you don't get out of the way. So he's trying to get the officers to leave with, saying like, hey, we don't want you to get hurt.
Threat.
Yeah, but if you don't leave, stuff's gonna happen.
Also, making a threat of violence against a police officer in and of itself is a crime. So.
Well, and these are federal police, so it's a federal crime. Okay, so. I wanna highlight too this woman who has a red, white, and blue kind of bandana type of thing. She's not wearing a mask. She's behind. She's the only woman in the frame right now. Dead center beneath that portrait in the background. That is the woman who died. So this is why you don't storm the Capitol, even if you're not necessarily the one beating on the door. She will, in about 30 seconds, start climbing through a window, which is problematic. But yeah, whether or not she needed to die, I'm still leaning on no. But yeah, this is how quick stuff can happen. So you guys need to be smart. This is why we have stood by very consistently last week, the week before, the month before, all last year. We said, in the modern context, protests kind of dumb. They made sense before the digital era, when there wasn't digital communications to inform your congressman as to what the will of the people was. When it was just horses and carrier pigeons to get the mail around, it kind of made a big deal to have a big group of people standing in front of a courthouse, and your politician was like, oh wow, I guess a bunch of people are interested in this thing. I guess I'll listen to their grievances. Nowadays, I don't think that any of the congressmen in Congress, I don't think that they didn't know that there was a bunch of Trump supporters who were kind of upset that Trump didn't win. You going there is only it's a risk to yourself. Again, if you want to take that risk, that's on you. Just put it out there. It is a risk to yourself. It's an unnecessary risk to yourself. And then it doesn't accomplish what the goal of a protest is to get to your politician, to get him to understand that you're interested in a particular topic. This protest, which is no longer a protest, is now a riot, did not accomplish that task because it was either redundant or it had the negative effect of the media and or the Democrats turning and being more polarized against you and making a bad narrative. So that's why, again, still consistently. But I just want you to look at her. She's standing there perfectly fine right now. I don't think that in her mind she'll be dead in 90 seconds from now, which I think that's important, especially with what we're doing moving forward, with how the world is going, how the country is going. It's important to remember that this stuff can happen quickly, and you need to be strategic in what it is that you're doing. Now someone like Dyer is perfectly willing to die for his country, right?
Yep.
But
yep, absolutely.
Is this a situation in which that would have been a death worthy of that oath?
No, absolutely. There's no value. Nothing was gained. It's not worth the sacrifice.
Yeah. So that's something.
And also, this is murder in my mind. Just going back to that.
Oh, it certainly is. Certainly is. Okay. So again, a couple things can be true at once, but at the end of the day, best to not get yourself into those situations. So just again, I'm just trying to get you guys to think through this stuff. A lot of difficult decisions are going to have to be made. A lot of hard to think about things are going to have to be done these next few years. A lot of the citizens, the civilians in America, are going to have to make tough choices about what it is that they want to take risks on moving forward. So I just want you guys to think through that. Again, not saying we have answers for you quite yet, but it's just something that you need to start thinking about. Because again, I don't think that she's thinking through that right now. But again, it happens fast.
Fuck the blue! We want you to go home. I'm recording, and there's so many people. It's just they're gonna push their way up here. Bro, I see.
I just want to point out something. I know a lot of conservatives are rightfully criticizing police who have been oath breakers, but generally conservatives tend towards individualism, where they are calling out individuals or groups who are all doing the same thing, not just blatantly saying "fuck the blue." That's very much not a conservative talking point. Am I wrong?
It's becoming such in certain areas, as we have, again, maintaining that consistency over broad lengths of time, all the way back to July or June, I think we had the discussion of police in large liberal strongholds in the big cities. It can't be default back the blue anymore. It's got to be a verify before you default trust them. But this hurling of insults using the modified Antifa slogans, that is not something that we've advocated, and it's not a right wing or even a right side, right?
Definitely abnormal.
Yes,
right?
Yes. I think that right now on the right, the sentiment towards police is just going back to we're not supporting you by default anymore, and we're a little upset at what you guys have done, but not to the point of attacking them. That it's not come to that anywhere close to that. It's just
if they weren't criticizing these officers, they'd be criticizing them for what they were actually doing, like what their precinct was doing, not just blatantly saying all police are bad. That's essentially what he's saying, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and so you hear these slogans that seem Antifa-ish, but again, in this image right now, the only person who's verified Antifa is the guy behind the camera. And again, I'm saying that he's verified Antifa because you look at his social media profiles, he's all over Antifa. He's a professional activist. He's got organizations that are Antifa based. He's been created events that have had Antifa. He's spoken at events that are Antifa. So he's Antifa. All right.
People out there get hurt. I don't want to see you get hurt. We will make a path dead ass. Like we don't want. That's what I'm saying. We'll make a path, bro. Please, just let us make a path. Just let us make a path. When the whole country hates you, I want you to go home. Go. Let's go. Get this shit.
Get this shit.
Yep. Okay. So, I would say that he was the leader of the group that is working on the store right now. So he walked up to the police. He explained to them, "Hey, I'm trying to convince you guys to leave. I'll play good cop for a few seconds. We just don't want to hurt you. I'm going to play bad cop for a few seconds. If you don't leave, we are going to hurt you. And then as soon as he gets them to leave, and again, he's saying, we just want to go through there. We just want to go through there. Is that what a journalist does? Is a journalist who's documenting something, are they the ones saying, hey, I really want to get in there. I want to help out this mob accomplish their task. Is that what a journalist does?
No,
Dyer?
journalists don't become the story. They aren't part of the story. They're supposed to be documenting the story.
Yeah.
He's definitely leading it.
So I'm gonna I'll play a few more seconds so I know where the I know where a particular point is where I can stop it before the shooting. But again, so as he went through the process of getting the cops to move, he explained why he wanted them to move, because he wanted to go through that door as part of the group. And then as soon as the cops leave, he's the one who calls out, knock this shit down. Well, I'll play that part again.
Just make a pass. When the whole country hates I want you to go home. Go. Let's go. Get this shit.
Let's go. All right, yeah. So he's kind of the ringleader there. So again, Anderson Cooper interviewed this guy as a passive observer, talking about all of the MAGA violence, how dangerous the right is. When he was the one ringleading this. So again, not to say all of these people got agency. All these people have agency. But that's Well, you know say anything on that, Dyer?
Nope, I think we said it.
Okay. So we'll watch a few more seconds of this. Okay. There you see the gun here coming out from behind these chairs here, which is all the farther I'm going to play it, because you got about 10 more seconds here before that officer fires and that woman dies. So it's interesting that CNN chose, of all the people that CNN could have chose that were at the Capitol that day, CNN chose somebody who was a verified Antifa instigator. After they said that the right was crazy for suggesting that there was Antifa instigators, CNN picked one. And we know because he was arrested by the FBI the day after the CNN interview. And it just so happens that this Antifa instigator is the one that was instigating the particular event where the person who got executed by Capitol Police was shot at. They're really trying to fuck with their heads. They're trying their damnedest to make us go crazy.
Yes, this is some high tier gaslighting.
So coincidental.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's gonna be a lot of people watching their reporting and not realize any of the stuff we've discussed here. And not that it's hard to find the information.
Yeah, and again,
you know what? This video is gonna disappear.
Well, yeah. So for right now, this video is on youtube.com/JadenX. This is Jaden's channel. You can very easily from Jaden's channel verify that he is the same Jaden that was on CNN, and that he's linked to all these Antifa organizations, and that he started an organization called Insurgency USA. I see in chats people saying that, the things that he's saying are far more insightful than what Donald Trump said, and I absolutely agree. And simultaneously, I agree that it is more insightful and
that's the wrong word.
What?
Insightful?
Inciting. It's far more inciting than what Trump said. But at the same time, all these people still have their own agency, and he's not specifically responsible for anything that he didn't do, even though you can see in the video. He is responsible for hitting on that door, because I can see him hitting on the door. And for some reason, I don't know why, for some reason he was shouting that he had a knife. So I'm sure it was just like, he's probably trying to put the knife away because, knife.
Yeah. He's warning people for safety reasons.
Yes, it's
hey, I have a knife. Be careful.
Yes, you gotta make sure you put your knives away, guys. It's so
put
important to put your knives away. Yes.
Put your knife
important.
in the car so the police won't shoot you.
It's the correct place to put it.
Oh my god.
Full circle. Okay. So, who's on YouTube? Do we got people on YouTube?
I guess people.
We got a couple people on YouTube. People on YouTube, I'm going to put a link in chat to go to dlive.com/ no, dlive.tv, sorry. dlive.tv/direwolf. I'll put a link there. Because we're going to hop off YouTube. Right, Dire? Because we got to talk about social media censorship, which we actually, like, ironically can't talk about on YouTube, which is very weird. Drockman82 followed. Thank you very much for the follow.
Yes.
If you are regularly watch us on YouTube, please follow us on DLive. You can log into DLive with your YouTube account, so you don't even have to make. Yeah, you don't even have to make a new account. You just go to DLive, and when you go to log in, it'll give you an option to do log in with an alternate credential, and you can select YouTube, log in with your Gmail. It'll synchronize everything up. You can log in with it'll give you your username, and then you can watch us there because our days on YouTube are numbered, as we always say. That's kind of the that's kind of the boogeyman on the right is we're gonna get kicked off of YouTube. We say that all the time. We've been saying that for years. I think we might actually mean it this time though.
If what would be bad though is if we didn't say this and then we get kicked off, then you'll never find us, and you'll probably cry in a corner for months on end, not knowing what happened to us. And I want to avoid you that heartache. So just a few seconds of going to DLive will save you months of crying in a corner because of losing us. For those who are on Twitch right now, you can stay there because we're going to continue broadcasting to Twitch as well. I'm not really sure how bad or good they are since.
They're getting worse, but they're fine for today. Okay, so